Hello, everyone. Welcome to our first webinar of the year. As promised, we're getting started promptly at 2:01 p.m. I know there are a few people still coming in, so we won't get formally started just yet. But I am excited. We have a really fun topic today. We're going to be talking about the future of search marketing. These are some of the themes that we're most likely going to be talking about the whole year. So for those of you who are on today, thank you. You're getting a great head start. So without further ado, let us begin the Future of Search Marketing webinar. Now, I am ecstatic to share with you that we have two very special guests with us who are on today. The first, she floats like a butterfly, she stings like a bee, our Director of SEO, Hala Ali, coming in from you to share with you some of the most exciting things that are happening in organic search. And on my right side today, the Sultan of Search, everyone's favorite, Manish Mohan. He's coming over to us live from the PPC and paid social departments to share what's happening on the paid media side of the world. And of course, for those of you who have joined us in the past, you get me, Steve Murphy, the Director of Marketing. I'll be sharing some information with you on last year's, as well as some follow-up information at the end of the webinar. So stay tuned, everyone. Today on the agenda, first we're going to start with some housekeeping for those of you who are new. I believe about 30% of you have never been on one of our webinars. We're going to give you the brief 2 to 3 slide intro about NetElixir. Then I'm going to be reviewing some of our 2018 predictions, right? I think it's really important that we take stock of what we thought of last year and see where it all played out. From there, I'll then introduce Hala to you. She'll begin to talk a little bit about how contextual search is changing the organic space. And then Manish will talk about the machine learning effect, that buzzword that we've all been hearing about for the past year or so. We'll then talk about some exciting new schema data and metadata that is going to take place in the SEO world. And we'll finish up with some customer segmentation marketing tips. So let's talk a little bit about NetElixir. For those of you who don't know us and have never heard my beginning of the webinar spiel, NetElixir is a retail search marketing agency that is dedicated to decoding what makes people click. We want to dig deeper than just the analytics, and we want to learn more about who your customers are, what do they care about, what causes them to buy, and what's going to cause them to continue to buy for you in the future. And it's that type of approach that we bring to paid search, SEO, display, social, Amazon, and MarTech that helps our customers win. Our team is comprised of over 130 plus team members across 3 global offices, and we're extremely proud to be featured partners with Google in their premier partner tier, Bing as a select agency, a UPS Ready partner. Shout out to all the reps I see here from UPS. Good to have you. As well as a Bright Edge Gold partner. So thank you again to all the partners that help us get better results for our clients. And we work with every retailer from food to fashion and everywhere in between. Some of the retailers we work with are the most iconic brands in the world, while others are up-and-coming newcomers looking to make a big splash in their respective categories. Now, without further ado, let's jump into some of the predictions we had in 2018 and compare to them how they worked out in the past year, right? So we were right on some, we were wrong on some others, but I wanted to highlight 3 that I think were really impactful in 2018. So the first was that competition for ad space will keep skyrocketing. Now, I'll admit, this was definitely one of our softer predictions. I think for those of you who have been in the space for a while, you've probably seen this coming, right? And the fact of the matter is, again, we saw this past holiday season, CPCs jumped 12.3% across all of our clients. That is the 4th straight year we've seen double-digit increases in cost per click values. and we don't predict it's going to slow down anytime soon. In addition to that, and as you can see on the screen here, we also saw new products from Google and Bing and others, for example, responsive text ads that have increased the amount of headline space you can use, body text you can use, and overall have stretched out how much real estate each individual ad takes up on the SERP. Finally, we've seen Amazon driving up prices. Again, most of you in the space are no stranger to this. They are buying up Google ads for their products and driving up the costs, even for OEMs and brands, but especially for retailers who are reselling products. All these things together have created immense competition, and we don't think this trend is going to stop in 2019 or in any years in the near future. Second prediction, one of them we made last year, was that non-traditional listings were going to begin dominating the organic SERPs. And again, we continue to see this trend popping up. Now, some of the effects are still felt from 2017 changes, right? Such as sidebar ads being removed and some of the new ad products jumping up on the paid section of Google. But we're also now seeing an exceptional amount of rich data and other universal listings showing up in the SERP. And what this means is that traditional retail search results are being pushed down. So if you take a look at this fancy little GIF that I'm really proud of making earlier this week, you can see when I do a search for French press coffee maker, which was one of my Christmas presents I'm most in love with this year, it takes you 70% of the page before you get to an actual retail listing. 70% of the page. The rest of it is videos, articles, advertisements, image results, right? I don't get to an actual retailer until scrolling pretty far down. What does this mean? This means that even if you do own the true number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4 top spots, that alone isn't going to generate the same amount of clicks. You have to begin thinking outside the box in search marketing, and I believe some of the points that Hala is going to bring up today in the webinar will really prove this point to you. And lastly, the one I want to cover, this is an area that we went really, really heavy on in 2018, and that was voice search. And we thought last year that somebody was going to commercialize voice search, whether it be Google or Bing or Amazon. We really thought there was going to be a formal product opened up to the masses that would be available by at least this past holiday season. We were wrong in that sense. We have seen some pilot programs pop up here and there on different marketplaces. However, there still really is no formal way to advertise on voice search, at least for the masses, right? At least for the majority of us who are here on this webinar today. And I say kind of false because I think there were some clear signals that were moving towards this. For example, you could take a look at the end of 2017, early 2018. Google made publicly available its list of voice search guidelines. This is how their own manual reviewers are evaluating voice search results. So you could see that they're basing it on 3 main factors. What is the length of the response? How is it formulated? And what is the elocution of the response, right? So when someone asks a question, like what is it Pasteur best known for? It expects it to have a clear, concise summary that's noting that his name is Louis Pasteur and that he probably invented a cure for rabies as well as pasteurization. In this case, that first result isn't really formulated great, so it's not getting the best score. In the same note on the bottom one, it's much too long of an answer. So while we still don't have any formal advertising products, you can see that there are different guidelines already coming out, and you could tell that some of the big search providers are merely collecting enough data until they formally introduce it. So we won't cover too much of that today, but I do encourage all of you to keep your eyes open for this and anticipate some sort of formal commercialized voice search product in the near future. Now I'm going to hand the microphone over to Hala, and she's going to talk a little bit about the importance of contextual search today.
Hi, everybody. Great to have you here. Before I begin the presentation, I will add a disclaimer. The introduction that Steve gave for me and Manish was his own brainchild, and we had no input into it. So just so you know that. Okay, so as Steve described, right, the SERPs are constantly changing. They become very, very contextual. So whereas previously we saw that the SERPs had the 4-ad pack and you had all these retailers able to take over the search, now you have all this information being provided where commercial retail searches are really being pushed to the bottom. What does that mean? It means voice searches here, and keywords are being sidelined by more contextual searches, creating a digital environment where no clicks are becoming more common, right? You have all this information being asked where keywords still play a role in organic search, but tracking and ranking is changing. You might be ranking number 1 for an informational piece that is not driving that transactional value that is the core of any marketing strategy. So how do you create that attribution? How do you create a search bar where you're able to not only get an ROI, but also be able to control your own brand? Do you just focus on keywords? Does organic search say these are the keywords and this is what it's ranking for? Or do you actually dive deeper and think about your consumer, creating personalized search results that actually take into account each of the micro touch points that will allow your SERPs to become more persona based, so that when a consumer searches the top of the funnel searches, you actually get a personalized result where each of the aspects of the micro journey, the customer journey, the micro touch points are taken into consideration. So what is really happening is personalized searches are coming up through the continual evolution of the knowledge graph or rank brain. This means traditional forms of organic, though will remain effective, they will evolve and mutate to a level where you see unnecessary keywords disappearing, ranking becoming ineffective, and really more precise and industry-focused traffic coming to the top. So over here, you see an example of a no-click search results where top of the funnel click becomes important. If you search best scented candles, the top result is actually just an article where you get the answer. You don't need to click anymore. Then you go forward, you ask for a retailer, what is a Roomba? You get the answer. The second aspect of the customer journey is, what does a Roomba cost? Again, you get the answer. Now, at this point, what does the retailer do? None of these results being presented here are from the Roomba.com website. It's actually Amazon, it's Wikipedia, it's informational, taking away the brand value. So how does that brand value come here, right? How do you create that brand where you dominate the SERPs? These type of searches are actually, while providing valuable top of the funnel clicks, are stripping the brands from the opportunity to convert, retarget, or impress upon potential customers the value they offer within the retail market. So how can we do this? How can a retailer actually take into account their brand, allow the contextual shift to take place while understanding that they need to dominate the SERPs? So to create this strategy in 2019, you have to consider multiple criteria. You have to provide the consumers with decision models to make decisions throughout the retail customer journey. How does that happen? You have to really start from the bottom. Where are you based? You have to stay relevant. Where are you based? Are you located in New York? How do the people in New York or the whole of the East Coast search? What are the nuances in terms of culture? How they interact with the people? How they interact in terms of language? Are there certain slang that is used? It is imperative to create a form of predictive analysis such that the consumer is provided with information at every micro moment. To support these micro moments, every channel must be consistent in terms of the brand voice, advertisement data. That means the images you have there, the alt tags for those images, the ad copy the paid team is doing, the metadata, the social media, everything has to be cohesive in terms of its synergy. You have to know your micro moments. That is the only way artificial intelligence, the bots that are creating these algorithms to allow the knowledge base and the rank brain to rank your brand, will be able to connect the dots. So how do we do that? We have partnered with BrightEdge to ensure, and using our own softwares to ensure that we allow you to take control of your brand and allow you to rank in the knowledge base. How can you take advantage of that? Contact Stephen. Stephen is our guy. He's the one you want to contact to get more information in how to dominate search through contextual searches in 2019. Now we have Manish, who is going to take you more into AI and help you understand how you can actually take advantage of the search.
Awesome. Thanks, Hala. In the search marketing world, every now and then we are challenged with certain paradigm shifting changes. Mobile commerce and voice search were two such changes. I'm sure a lot of the brands out there are still figuring out their mobile strategy, while we have a new friend called artificial intelligence. And every time we have such a change that comes in front of us, what we end up thinking in the beginning is how much is the right amount. When mobile commerce came in, a lot of brands wanted to wait it out. They wanted to see what other brands are going to do. They wanted to see what other hardware players in the market will do to make mobile user experience better. And as we see today, mobile commerce is an indispensable part of your overall digital marketing strategy. Artificial intelligence, machine learning, smart bidding, smart campaigns are all buzzwords that we've been hearing for the last 1 or 2 years now. Some of the brands have already embraced these changes, either partially or completely, and we have all had experiences using these different automation technologies out there. One of the key observations has been that as you adopt smart bidding and other forms of automation, it will definitely strip the advantages of any sort of manual optimizations that you were used to doing. A lot of brands have traditionally had very strong data analytics and business intelligence capabilities, which was used to feed certain signals or insights into your search marketing campaigns. As machine learning takes over, we will see that that portion will become less prominent. What that really means is that the focus will now go back to having the right strategy in place and having some strong frameworks. And the reason why that is so important is that the success of any automation depends on the framework that it is based on. You may have the best smart bidding technology in the world. If it is mapped to a campaign that is set up really poorly, it is set to fail. And that is the reason why consumer insights, attribution, and marketing mix planning will become super important. For those of you who have already tried out some form of automation, either in your search marketing campaigns or in your social marketing campaigns, would agree that it ultimately leads to a certain sort of campaign consolidation. That is something that machine learning prefers to work on, fewer number of campaigns so that it has a bigger data set to base its decisions on. And in the long run, in certain cases, it could also lead to lesser control and transparency. And the reason I wanted to call this out today is as we get more and more into the automated world of search marketing, it calls for a big mindset change. The way the campaigns were structured, the way we evaluated their performance, the kind of metrics that we had access to, those could significantly change by the end of this year. Another big call out that we wanted to make today, based on our experience adopting smart bidding and other forms of automation, is that respecting what can be done with automation. And I'll explain what that means. There are various automation technologies available. If I focus specifically on Google, there are certain automated bidding technologies. You can either have a ROAS, a return on ad spend based automation. You can also have a cost per order based automation in your campaigns. If you decide to challenge the algorithm or the machine learning system by giving an unreasonable ROAS constraint, at the end of it, the system might eventually end up hitting those numbers. But what might happen is that in trying to hit those unreasonable ROAS goals that you gave, it may actually end up suppressing your new customer acquisition goals. And what that means in the search marketing world is, let's say you have a campaign that traditionally converted at a 2x ROI. You suddenly map it to an automated bidding technology and expect it to convert at a 5x ROI. It may eventually do that over a 6 to a 12-month period. But then when you go back and analyze your CRM data, you may realize that this campaign, which was previously getting at least 50% new customers, is only getting 10% new customers now because you made it convert at a higher ROAS. That is something I would highly recommend to be cautious about as you adopt smart bidding across all your campaigns. Having said all that, it's safe to assume that artificial intelligence and machine learning are here to stay. We won't be surprised if all the leading platforms and search engines even make it mandatory to adopt smart bidding as you set up a new campaign. And rightfully so, because there is no way that a manual effort can match what an AI can do. The speed with which an AI-based solution can process data is unmatched. So having looked at both sides, the pros and cons of an AI-based approach, we wanted to recommend more of a phased approach. Again, going back to the example that I mentioned in the beginning, when mobile became this big thing, a lot of us took a very cautious approach. We took baby steps to ensure that our mobile user experience is fixed. We may not have spent a lot from an advertising perspective on mobile in the first couple of months. But once the user experience was fixed, we eventually ended up making mobile search a big part of the overall search marketing program. Similarly, when it comes to machine learning and AI, it's safe to take a phased approach. What we recommend to most of our clients is to allocate a certain budget to test out smart campaigns and to make sure that it is really adding incremental value. Challenge the AI-based solutions to drive success in an area where you have not had a lot of success doing it manually. A couple of examples from a traditional paid search perspective could be your non-brand campaigns. If you have not had a lot of success driving high ROAS using manual bidding, let's go ahead and try out automated bidding on those campaigns. If you have certain product categories which are highly competitive and you find it hard to stay relevant on search, let's try out automated bidding there. If you have high consideration products with very long buying cycles where the customer's context becomes extremely important, let the system figure out how relevant a customer is before going ahead and deciding whether or not to bid on that particular customer. And while we do all this, one of the things that Hala had mentioned was content becoming really important. It's very easy to get lost in this rabbit hole of location bits, mobile bits, device adjustments, campaign strategies, automated bidding. But while we focus on all of this, content still remains extremely important. And as contextual search gains prominence, it's important to have personalized content and experiences on search which are tailored for different types of audiences that you go after. With that, I'll pass it back to Hala.
Thank you, Manish. So now I'm going to piggyback on what Manish just said. He ended by saying that contextual search has become very important, and it's very necessary to focus on what the consumer is looking for, not what you perceive the consumer to be looking for. So in paid, you have all this automated technology that you can use. You have all this software. What do you do in organic, right? How do marketers utilize artificial intelligence to go forward? So in 2019 and beyond, as Manish mentioned, artificial intelligence will be the technology where the most radical changes are going to be taking place. However, artificial intelligence is actually limited in its understanding of language syntaxes and cultural perceptions. That means context becomes difficult. How do you remove that ambiguity from search, right? We can create algorithms, we can create software, but in the end, artificial intelligence is a technology. It is not capable of human socialization. It needs to learn based on specific assumptions. Now, how are those assumptions made? Think of AI as the environment, right? It's the algorithms are the various groups within the environment that are creating those ranking systems. Marketers in this situation are the sociologists who are actually able to make sense of the differences and create the bridge to understanding the various gaps within the groups. So once, in terms of context, you've identified the keywords, you have identified their context, you've added the information to the page, and you've put it on off page as well in terms of your brand. You're running paid campaigns, social campaigns, organic strategies. What is the role of the marketer at this point? Once this is all done, the role of the marketer actually shifts to become more analytical, and artificial intelligence algorithms come into play. Because once you've launched everything, you can't do anything. Now you're leaving it up to the artificial intelligent bots to create those associations. So what does this mean? It means that your campaigns are as effective as your marketers. The more qualified your marketer, the better those strategies will be. So what do? How do you remove this ambiguity in terms of organic? So through marketing insights, digital marketers will now be able to deliver more personalized results. They can focus on creative strategies. They can go for developing organic and paid understanding. To remove that ambiguity, we are now seeing the introduction of machine-readable entity IDs. This was I actually first heard of this from Mike Arnson of Upbuild in the SMX Advanced 2018 conference in Seattle. For me, that was something completely new, and I think it was one of the few sessions in SMX that actually gave me something new to learn. And since then, I've been really fascinated by it. It's not in the mainstream. It's there. Google is using it in Google Lens. They're using it in Google Trends. They're using it in the knowledge database. But most organic marketers have not yet implemented it because most of the tools are actually behind the algorithms. So what machine readable entity ID is, it's a set of characters that refers to a specific entity. That means you as a retailer have a brand. The brand might be a tool brand, it might be cosmetics, whatever the brand is. There actually exists a machine readable ID, which is an alphanumeric phrase in most cases, which can be different, but it's present in the form of semantic data. So this ID is now actually a barcode for you. You know, you have a brand, it is identified by this ID, which can actually remove the ambiguity between search results and your brand. So machine readable IDs are forms of semantic data that are being used to authenticate users or entities online. Search engines were actually created to provide digital users access to a database where they would find information based on their search criteria. These machine readable IDs removes that ambiguity and presents the algorithms with the bridge between data and content. So for example, you search e.l.f. Cosmetics, and I know we have our clients e.l.f. Cosmetics there. Sarah, hello. So if you search e.l.f., what do you get? In search results, you could get e.l.f. Cosmetics, which is a popular beauty brand and does extremely well, in the market. Or you could get e.l.f., which is the figurative figure, or it would be, in this case, Will Ferrell as the e.l.f., the popular Christmas movie, right? Now, how does e.l.f. Cosmetics rank higher? How do you get e.l.f. Cosmetics to be the first result in the rich snippets in the knowledge database? So e.l.f. Cosmetics actually has a machine-readable entity ID that we can associate it within the structured data. Once we've added into structured data, anytime anyone associated with e.l.f. Cosmetics, it could be social media, they might be, a follower on social media, they might be running paid campaigns, they might be marketers, they might be friends, anyone even vaguely associated, even location-wise. Maybe you entered the store, gave them your email ID, you downloaded an app on your mobile device, you searched it. Anytime any person, millions of people around the world searched e.l.f. and actually clicked on e.l.f. Cosmetics, now algorithms are able to make that connection. So the next time what happens, if I, as the search, the organic marketer for e.l.f. Cosmetics, I go in and search e.l.f., 99% of the time I will get e.l.f. Cosmetics as the first result. The same can be said of a person who is associated with me. Anyone on my social media profile, anyone on my LinkedIn profile, they will actually get e.l.f. Cosmetics as number one, because the bots are now in that position to connect the content word e.l.f. with the entity e.l.f. through that machine readable ID. What do you get now? You get qualified traffic. Because you are allowing the bots to make the associations themselves, you are able to make that association, and those machine readable IDs at this point become the most prominent feature for you to remove that ambiguity from search. Previously, paid was more capable of providing qualified traffic. They were able to say, we're going to, go for this demographic, we're going to use this device, and gave you a great ROI, a great ROAS. However, organic always went more generally, and they could only give generic results and hope that you get qualified traffic. But with machine readable IDs, it's completely changed. So as artificial intelligence algorithms become more dominant in search results, they require these patterns of association to give more accurate results. So starting from the URL identification to the associations based on comparison, segmentation, categories, industries, machine readable IDs actually can not only be associated with entities in terms of retail businesses, you can actually associate them with topics, not search terms at this moment, but topics. So if in a category you have cosmetics as a topic, you can associate an ID with that. Now think of that, right? Content is very, it has a syntax. It is based on perceptions, your history. The same way that bots have the structured data to actually create that history. Native applications downloaded on your mobile devices. You have deleted some, you added some. You interacted with paid ads. The bots are actually capable of following that history, your personalized search history, associating with this machine readable ID, and then presenting the results. Very, very personalized results. Someone sitting in New York will get completely different results from someone sitting in Kansas. So those machine readable IDs are now capable of verifying the data, the search bots, and giving you very qualified personalized history. So to aid these patterns of association, structured data comes into play. All HTML-based structured data is specifically created to allow bots to more seamlessly and quickly create patterns of association needed to provide the user with the results they need. So how do you find the results? It's very easy. You can go into Google Trends, you can go into the knowledge database, find the unique ID for your business, link the common entities through structured data, which will allow you to create those relationships, and in the end, verify the knowledge graph, Wikidata, and other sources. How can you do it right now? After the webinar, again, contact Stephen Murphy, and he will be able to, get into contact with me, and I would be happy to get you that machine readable ID and give you more information on how to go forward. I will now hand it over to Manish, who will take it a step further and help you understand how everything comes together to give you the results you want.
Awesome. Thanks, Hala. Well, we spoke about AI, we spoke about machine learning, which is all there. You can see it. And now I wanted to briefly spend some time on a myth. As marketers, I think all of you would agree when I say that any form of marketing is an ongoing pursuit of getting to your ideal customer. As brands, we spend a lot of time and money to understand who that ideal customer is, what he or she looks like, what sort of a lifestyle do they have. And it's great to aspire to have a very defined ideal customer segment. But on the contrary, as we have looked at tons of data sets from our clients across search, organic, paid social, and even other channels, the reality is that your actual customer base often represents a wide spectrum when it comes to demographics and lifestyle. If you really think about all the brands that are part of your life today, just go back 5 years or 10 years from now. Did you really have these brands as part of your aspirational set? Maybe there were some brands that you aspired to own, but probably you could not from an income perspective or from a lifestyle perspective. So things change. Life events have a big influence on brand preferences. Your key customer segment today may not always be the core segment if you factor in the next 5 years or next 10 years. And that's precisely why we feel that chasing just one specific customer segment may not be the right strategy. And more so, what is exactly the business risk if your core customers, for some reason, switch to an alternate brand? We often see that there are certain brands that come up with a revolutionary product that changes the course of that entire industry. And more often than not, we are not prepared for such changes. And that is where having a backup plan is always recommended. This is a sample data from one of our clients. The details have been masked. If you really look at it, the core segment, that is the first table on the left, had a revenue share of 45% at an average order value of roughly around $225 and a very strong conversion rate of 2.7%. It's great. This segment has to be consistent. We have to pursue this segment across all channels. But at the same time, what you cannot afford to ignore is that there are two other customer segments, tier 2 and tier 3, which in this case represent a different age group, which had a revenue share of 15 and 10%, a very reasonable average order value of $185 and $245, and conversion rates that were actually stronger than the core segment. A lot of factors go into this. Your core segment is also a segment that could be most competitive for you. You could have very strong competitors with very strong offerings in that space. And if you assume that even they are focusing on that core segment, it's natural that your costs will go up and the conversion rates might take a hit because the end customer has many options. The moment you move outside that core segment, in this case, let's say tier 2 and tier 3, the reason you are seeing a higher conversion rate is that one, not all of your competitors are also focusing on these segments. And two, those customers are probably not as educated as your core customers. And that actually presents a big opportunity as a brand. What can we do because of this in the search marketing world is establish cross-channel audiences. One of the most surprising things that we have found as we have worked with more than 100 retailers today is even today, after having so many discussions about omni-channel strategies, it's quite common to see that the most profitable customer that is defined based on your CRM metrics at times is different for paid search. Your key customer for email could be completely different. For paid social could be a whole different segment. And that is exactly the challenge that we run into when your marketing departments and your agencies work in silos. We have a lot of clients who actually get us into the room with their other partners and their other agencies, and keeping everything aside, we might be competitors outside, but at the end of it, we are all chasing the same customer. So it makes a lot of sense to sit down, use one single CRM, define your core audience segments, which will remain the same across all the channels. So you define tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3 customers for email will be the same on paid search and will exactly be the same on paid social. That takes care of your existing customers. What about new visitors? After all, that is where paid search comes in. And that is where cross-channel synergy can be very important. Let's assume that you are running a prospecting campaign on Facebook. You're running carousel ads, you're running single image ads, or you're running video ads. After customers engage with those ads, do you really prioritize them when they come back on search? It's quite common to see customers engage with ads in their Facebook newsfeed, but because they are not in the moment looking for that product, they may remember the brand name or they may briefly engage with it before they go back to what they were doing. And a couple of days later, they might come back to search and continue their pursuit for the same brand. The first thing that breaks is messaging. As Hala had also mentioned, that consistent messaging is key. It's extremely important to make sure that the brand experience when they move from one channel to another does not break. And more importantly, from a campaign perspective or an optimization perspective, it's important that you detect that these customers have already engaged with your ads on Facebook. Let's prioritize them on search. And at the end of it, going back to the whole concept of having multiple consumer segments, it's important to allocate a test budget to your emerging consumer segments. Most of your budget will continue going into your key segment, which is perfectly fine. But always be on the lookout for emerging segments, which probably 2 years down the line or 5 years down the line may end up being your key customer segment. With that, I'll hand it back to Steve.
That was fantastic. I learned a lot today. First and foremost, I learned don't lead a webinar with dad jokes. Not the kind of response internally I expected here. So a great lesson to take with me for the rest of 2019. Unfortunately, we don't have unlimited time here. There's a lot happening in the future of search that we weren't even able to get to today. So I'm going to tease a few of the ones that didn't make the cut that we will be talking about both in future webinars and other events and engagements we have coming up at NetElixir. First one that my associate Manish loves to talk about, and I have the pleasure of having an office right next to his, so I overhear these calls, but the rise of responsible marketing, and really knowing that just because we can do something doesn't mean we should, especially in an age where consumer preferences for privacy are taking a hard left turn, and the things that may have been acceptable a year or two ago will no longer be acceptable in the near future. And we're really excited to start pushing some more content about that topic because it's something that's near and dear to our heart and something that's part of the NetElixir core values, both internally and for our clients. Another one that we really wanted to talk about but simply didn't have the time for today was optimizing for voice to screen. Anyone that's seen any commercial over the holiday seasons knows that these new Google Home products, the Amazon Echo Show, and even the Facebook portal are starting to make customers more familiar with voice to screen type technology, where your fingers never even touch a keyboard in order to search and interact. And it creates an interesting question for all of us and expands on a question that started last year of how do we optimize traditionally visual content for voice search? Well, now the question is, what happens if people can't even touch my content? Do they have a way to search for me and scroll down my page? Is my content interactive enough for an audience that may be standing 3 feet away while trying to interact with it? All these questions or more are going to be increasingly important when we talk about a hands-free search environment, while also balancing that with an array of customers who are still visiting our site from mobile, from desktop, and from other devices. So we'll be getting a little bit more into that come March and April. We're really excited to share some research around it. And finally, has it begun time to start influencing the influencers? Right? We see influencer marketing making a huge, huge impact in the retail world. In fact, at our X equals experience, that was one of the most popular questions that kept popping up last September was, how can we take more advantage of influencer marketing? in the question of the search world is, when do we stop just thinking about our end customers in our segmentations? And when do we start advertising and influencing people that are going to influence our end customers? When do we start finding the people who are the most vocal and begin advertising directly to them so that we can get a grassroots approach to spreading our message across the board? Again, a really interesting topic that we can't wait to talk about a little bit more in the future. So let's do a quick recap, as we did cover a lot of ground today. First and foremost, don't forget to heed last year's predictions. Just because the year has passed doesn't mean these things will stop happening, right? So it's important that you continue to review all the changes that happened in the past few years, continue to build them into your marketing programs. I know even Manish and Hala mentioned earlier, some folks we talked to still haven't even finished optimizing for mobile yet, and that's a trend we've been talking about since at least 2015 and beyond, right? Secondly, contextual search is changing how we approach SEO. No longer can we just think about what people are searching for. Instead, we now have to consider how they're searching, when they're searching, where they're searching, and arguably the most important, why they're searching. So we do need to have a much better approach to how we create content and what we're measuring when we're looking at success. Third, we need to know that AI is changing how we approach bidding and audiences and all the technical quantitative elements of paid search. And as marketers, we almost have to harken back to the old days of marketing with an emphasis on the qualitative, on creativity, while also making sure we don't go too deep into the AI bucket before we truly know the outcomes, and make sure that we appropriately test and deliver new ways to understand how AI can help us, and where we should take the reins back as a brand and retain control of our message. Fourth, we want to talk about unique metadata opportunities. I know I already saw some questions coming about these machine readable entity IDs. It's crazy, it's technical, it's complicated, and most importantly, we really don't know what the future holds for it. We only know the potential. So it's important that your teams start investigating and doing your own tests with some of these bleeding edge technologies like MREIDs and others that are coming out. So that way, if search engines do make some changes behind the scenes that we don't know about, your brand is going to benefit before anyone else. And finally, don't hang your hat on that ideal profile customer like Manish said. It's important that we look to other segmentations, because the customers of today will no longer be your customers in the future. And there are going to be groups, whether they're millennials or Gen Z or whatever they're calling kids that have been born within the last 10 years, they will eventually be your paying customers. And it's important to know what levers are going to influence their buying decisions in the future, as well as who some of the lesser known segments are that you aren't taking advantage of today. So I would now like to share a few next steps, and I see some people are asking questions. Please keep typing them in so we have time to look at them a little bit. Next steps, review all this. I'm going to send you all the deck. So if that's your question, checkmate, already answered. I'm going to send everyone that's attended today, as well as everyone that registered and missed it. You'll get all these slides. You'll get a video of the recording, and you'll get any supporting documentation that we talked about. So I do advise you to review everything here with your teams and start building your plan for the future. How will you incorporate some of these changes while also managing the now and the day-to-day that you have to get done to run your businesses? Secondly, a little bit of a selfish plug here, but I think a few of our clients can relate and give us some good words here. We are more than welcome to help you after this webinar. We always get a few people coming to us saying, hey, that was a really cool segment, but can you break that down for my industry? We're more than happy to do that. And in particular, when we talk about the analysis of your no-click search results and the machine readable entity IDs, I know these can be complex subjects, so please reach out. Visit netelixir.com/contact. Shoot me a message here, or even shoot me an email when we send the follow-up, and I'll connect you with the right person who can help you understand how all of these things can be fixed or evaluated for your business. And finally, check your inbox because we have a white paper coming up. I'm going to include all the points we have here today for those of you who prefer reading. Side note, I just got a Kindle, so I'm on this huge reading kick, and I absolutely love it. If you don't have one, I highly recommend you get one today. We will be sending out this white paper in the next week or two. It will include not only the topics from today, but many of the ones that didn't make the cut, as well as a few bonus topics. So there's going to be everything you heard today, plus much, much more. So keep a lookout for that, and we're excited to send that your way. Now, the part that we're all waiting for, getting some of your questions answered. So let's dig in here. We have one about the machine-readable entity IDs. And Emily was asking, so what happens when someone's searching for both Elf Cosmetics and Elf the movie? Maybe it's Christmas and they're looking for lipstick, but also trying to get some holiday cheer. How would the machine determine which result to show for this person? Hala?
So this comes into how associations are made. So when bots are making those associations, there are more than 1,500 criteria that might be taken into consideration. So for example, if I'm doing some research, I was like, maybe I want some makeup. And I search makeup. And the second thing I type is elf. They take into account when the search took place. So the time difference as well, the sequence in which your searches are being done. All that is being calculated as well. So if the first search query term I put in is makeup, the second is elf, chances are elf cosmetics comes on top. Secondly, Christmas is around the corner. Elf is normal. Something that really comes up. You want an elf toy. You conduct a search. You're looking for Christmas gifts. Second search done. Elf. Chances are elf, the term or the gifts would come up. So it's not, really, really specific to only one criteria. So the machine readable IDs make it easier for retailers to remove that ambiguity, while the algorithms work to create the connections. So it's a very personalized search. Even the time difference between queries can determine the result that you get. I hope that answers your question, Emily.
Thank you so much, Hala. I think that's a really bleeding edge type of subject. We're going to keep monitoring it as the year goes on, but we are looking forward to seeing a few tests we're running now and how they come up. We did have a question for you, Manish, and then I know we're running a little late, so we're going to wrap up right after this one. Someone was asking, if I make the jump into automated bidding, can I go back to manual afterwards, or am I stuck? Thank you, David, for that question.
So yes, you can go back to manual bidding as of today. So I can't really predict how the platforms will change, because at some point we may have we may have a big platform change wherein you may not be able to revert any such changes. But as it stands today, you can experiment with smart bidding for certain campaigns, check out the results, and then revert back to manual bidding if you would like to. That is definitely an option today.
Great, thank you. We unfortunately don't have much time. We're going to cut off now because I know we're about 10 minutes over, but there was a lot of great content. Thank you all for joining. I look forward to seeing all of you both at next month's webinar, as well as at some of the upcoming trade shows, including NRF, eTail West, and many others. So please feel free to reach out to us if you'll be there. Thanks again, and have a great evening, everyone.